There is a brand product out there that has made its way into 600 million pairs of shoes this year alone that you may not have paid a lick of attention to, but also may be the biggest reason you find your favorite shoe so comfortable. Hey, what's up, Zach here? And you've probably noticed that in a lot of my videos, I hardly ever discuss the removable insole of your shoe. And that's not an oversight, that's not me forgetting to. It's simply because in a lot of cases, it just doesn't matter. I don't think it really makes any bit of difference, with three really specific exceptions. Number one, drop-in midsoles, because the entire thing's removable. Number two would be thermoplastic insoles, because there's pros and cons to those that you really need to know about. Number three, and the one I'll always actually make mention of as actually a feature to a shoe whenever it's actually in the shoe, is when there's an Ortholite insole in there. Now, why is it that I only ever mention Ortholite by name? No, it's not because they've sponsored this video. However, this video isn't sponsored like a traditional sponsored video. I'm not gonna be giving you a discount code at the end of this. It is just purely educational. They make insoles for other companies. They don't necessarily make aftermarket insoles. You can find some of them, which if there is a link, I'll find it down below and put it in there if you want to check it out. But this really isn't me trying to sell you an insole. You're going to find it in more premium shoes. This is much more of just educating you about the properties of shoe insoles, what they can do, what their limitations are, and what performance advantages you can extract out of a shoe with a premium, Ortholite insole in it. And more performance advantages than I really even paid attention to, even though I always, had been paying attention to Ortholite insoles, until I actually got into actually studying what the foam structure and the chemical structure of their foams are and what they can do. There's some things that I didn't even really realize they were doing, and put it this way, they're doing a lot more than you think they are. And so I guess I should say, now that I'm thinking about it, also a lot of times the reasons that I'm making mention in a video if an Ortholite insole is present in the shoe, that means the company that made that shoe invested enough into that shoe to put a premium insole like that in there. So right off the bat, you know that shoe has had a little bit more care taken into it. But speaking of insoles, what is an insole? Because, they are different than an orthotic. So an insole is simply what your foot touches, right? It's the liner for your footbed to make the shoe more comfortable. I used to say that they were all removable, but now we know from some shoes that are coming out, some of them actually are integrated into the shoe, which there are, pros and cons to that, of course. But even premium insoles, though, are not necessarily orthotics, especially when comparing plastic or carbon fiber or composite orthotics to shoe insoles, which, usually are made of foam. But remember, a premium Ortholite can give you just as much support as an equivalent flexible foam orthotic. But contrast that level of support to what you see in some other shoes, which is literally just a scrap piece of foam, which looks like it was cut out by a pair of kitchen scissors you would get at Target. Now, this is at best going to fit into the shoe, and at worst, actively make the shoe feel less comfortable. That's why, like I said, a lot of times I don't even talk about them because it's just there's nothing here worth talking about. So number one, what is an Ortholite insole and why does it matter so much? Why is it this marvel of foam technology? Ortholite insoles are a proprietary open cell polyurethane foam. And what makes open cell polyurethane such a revolutionary product versus, say, something like EVA or other closed cell foams? All right, so let's talk about differences between an open cell foam and a closed cell foam. What are they? Why you would use them? What are the advantages and disadvantages? Because a lot of times, they're both used in combination in the same shoe for different reasons. Now, a closed cell foam is just that. All the cells of the foam are closed. You can kind of see it on the microscope. And what that means is there's no communication between the cells of those foams. They're completely walled off. That means they're going to be a little bit more watertight. That also means that there's potential that they're going to be more dense of a foam, depending on how you dial in the chemical properties of it. That also means that it's going to want to deform, which means that when you deform a closed cell foam, even after the first time, there's going to be that microscopic little bit of deformation, even in a really hyper dense hard midsole. That's why EVA foam is so popular with costume makers, because you can mold them and bend them and they'll stay where you put them, and they'll be able to retain those really interesting and really difficult shapes to make, versus an open cell foam where all the cells, you can see on the microscope, all those cells are actually open to each other. Now that means that airflow is going to get in there really well. They can be less dense, a little more breathable, airy, lighter.
Also what that means, I think the biggest difference is that when an open cell foam deforms, it wants to spring back to life. It's just in its nature to kind of retain its shape. Now, this works really well for something like a tongue, an ankle collar, or a removable insole where you need something that's going to have consistent shape over time, where you need something that will be able to accommodate your foot, or your shape of your foot, but also not stay so deformed that every time you put it on, it's going to just want to collapse more and more.
But the fact is that this specific chemistry of open cell foam made specifically for the functions of a shoe insole means that they have been able to test so many different formulations of their foam that now they can guarantee to shoe companies that the insole will retain its properties throughout the lifetime of the shoe. So from mile 1 to 500, the fit and feel of that insole will be exactly the same regardless of what the shoe is doing underneath of it. Hence why some shoes that don't have that premium features on them feel so good underfoot. A lot of times, you're feeling the Ortholite insole, not the shoe. Their polyurethane is so dialed in that they can make countless different formulations of insoles to match, contrast, complement, or just make up for a shoe's midsole performance properties in general. Just take a look at this binder. All different formulations of foams, all of which serve different purposes. For example, Ortholite Lazy, yes, that is the name of the foam, is a top cover foam that's meant to make firmer base foams more tolerable. And you can see how all the shock from the ball bearing just dies on it, only getting 7 centimeters of bounce height. You can also see, putting my finger on it, how much deformity there is, but also how it does rebound back. So it gives a little more of that contour, but because it's open cell foam, rebounds back afterwards. Same with the Eco Impressions foam, which is actually one of the many bio-oil based foam. That also dispersed enough shock to only get 6 centimeters. Contrast that to the X55 foam, which got 16 centimeters of bounce height. And also remember, these are thin slabs of foam here, not even the thicker formulations you see on actual Ortholite insoles. What's also fascinating is that X series foam can be dialed in all the way from 25% bounce all the way to 40%, as well as the 55% bounce, just depending on the use case and the shoe. And not only can the bounce to absorption ratio be tailored, but the actual texture of the material can also be tailored if you want a very specific feel underfoot. Ortholite open cell polyurethane is antimicrobial, magnitudes of order more breathable and durable than traditional foams, and will last the lifetime of any shoe it's put in. And yes, that has been studied. So why isn't it in all midsoles? Well, number one, weight. When it's in that quantity and sandwiched between a Strobel board and rubber, it just loses its best properties, to be honest, which is why it's really only used as an insole, tongue padding, and ankle collar padding. The other reason is that it is such a premium blend of foam that having it in that quantity also a lot of times would just be cost prohibitive for a lot of companies. Now, when I asked the higher ups at Ortholite how long it actually takes them to manufacture an insole and what that process is actually like, it's much more complicated than, and involved than you would think. Number one, a company usually comes with them with some drawings and schematics of the shoe. This is an overall idea of what the shoe is about. Is it a running shoe? Is it a court shoe? Things like that. Or is it maybe a more premium dress shoe? Then after that point, Ortholite will come back to them with what they think is, the best combination. They'll cut one just in its basic shape. Then they start wear testing different foams with the different shoes and seeing how they kind of contrast. And because, they have so many different options of foams, they can start doing that. Now, they told me at Ortholite, if it's a shoe line that has been around for a while, they can usually get that down to 4 months. They say it also can go up to 18 months if it's a new shoe, if they're trying to do something brand new, if maybe the foam in that insole is something new and proprietary, that there is just as much care taken into that insole as into the midsole of the shoe to how it's going to complement each other. And once that manufacturing process is complete and the shoe is on your foot, what you can expect having an Ortholite underneath of you versus, let's say, a scrap insole or just a standard EVA closed cell foam insole is that although, yes, the shoe will start to break in after you have it on, the uppers will start to conform, that insole will then retain the exact same properties of underfoot feel that you had from day one to day whatever the shoe. Ortholite guarantees their insoles. So even though the shoe might start to conform and break in, the actual feeling underfoot will be the same consistent feeling. So that doesn't matter if you're a runner, tennis player, basketball player, pickleball player, whatever, you can expect consistent feel underfoot, consistent comfort, bounce, shock absorption, breathability, whatever that insole is, whatever that one Ortholite insole that's in your shoe is meant to do, because remember, there are so many different properties of them. Whatever it is meant to do, it'll be consistent throughout the life of the shoe, so that no matter what, what's directly under your foot will not change, which will give you so much more confidence underfoot, which obviously is going to improve performance. But I think the interesting part is that in some shoes with the Ortholite in there, they're going to have as much contour as an over-the-counter foam orthotic. In others, they'll be more flat because it's going to match up with what the shoe is doing. And that's, like I said, that's what takes like a niche company to the next level. I mean, it takes niche manufacturing to just a whole new place because this company is all, I mean, all they care about are these shoe insoles. And when that's all you care about, that's all you do, the product is going to start to get so refined over time. And that's why someone like me who studies shoes all the time, has to be the most fascinating product I've really, I mean, it's amazing how much difference and how much, how much detail you can get into with just what's right under your foot. So love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you look for shoes with Ortholite insoles in them? Do you save your Ortholites to put in other shoes? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you want to check out more about Ortholite, more about their manufacturing process and just the absolute fascinating science of open cell polyurethane foam, I bet you never thought you'd hear that more in one video than today. Make sure you click the link in the description below, as well as subscribe down below. Respect, rubber, and foam. I'll see you somewhere in the sneakerverse.